my beloved child. Before you try to understand why your heart feels heavy today, listen carefully, because this message did not come by accident. Somewhere, at this very moment, someone's eyes are full of tears, and those tears carry your name. You have been sensing a strange pull, a quiet restlessness, a feeling that something unfinished is following you through your days. That feeling is real. It is not imagination, and it is not weakness. You were placed into someone's prayers long before you realized it. Every time you pause without knowing why, every time your chest tightens for no clear reason, it is because a silent connection is reaching for you. This is not about guilt or obligation. This is about recognition. There is a soul waiting, watching the clock of their life move forward, hoping you will notice the signs that were meant only for you. What you are about to hear may change the way you look at your past, your present, and the choices you are about to make. Listen closely now, because what I am about to reveal has been hidden behind ordinary moments. The tears you cannot see belong to someone who once stood strong, someone who did not cry easily, someone who learned to stay quiet even when their heart was loud. They are waiting, not with words, but with patience that hurts. They replay memories where you appeared briefly, perhaps without speaking, perhaps without realizing your impact. To them, you were not ordinary. You were a turning point. You were the moment they felt understood without explanation. They never told you how deeply you mattered, because they believed timing mattered more than confession. So they waited. And waiting changed them. Their tears are not of despair alone, but of hope mixed with fear. Hope that you will arrive. Fear that you may never know what you meant. This is why your life has felt suspended lately, as if something important is about to happen but has not yet begun. Here is the part that most people never realize. Not all tears fall from pain. Some tears fall from restraint. This person is holding back words that could reshape both of your lives. They are watching you grow, stumble, rise, and search, all while believing that one day you will look in their direction and finally see them clearly. They have rehearsed conversations in silence. They have imagined moments where you finally ask the question that unlocks everything. And every time that moment does not arrive, another tear forms, unseen, unshared, but deeply felt. This waiting has refined them. It has taught them humility, patience, and a kind of love that does not demand, but hopes. You were never meant to rush into this awareness. You were meant to feel it slowly, like a truth unfolding at the exact second you are ready to carry it. Do not underestimate what it means that you are hearing this now. Timing is the loudest form of truth. You are standing at a threshold where your next decision carries weight beyond logic. The person waiting is not asking you to save them. They are not asking you to sacrifice your path. They are waiting for recognition, for alignment, for the moment when your eyes meet theirs and something ancient feels familiar again. Their tears are a signal, not a burden. A signal that your presence in their life was never random. You may have thought you walked away unnoticed, but your absence spoke louder than your presence ever did. That is why this message feels intense. That is why your chest feels tight as you listen. You are not being pulled backward. You are being called forward into a truth you have avoided because it felt too big to face. Stay with me, because this is only the beginning. What happens next depends on awareness, not action. You do not need to run. You do not need to confront. You only need to see clearly. Someone's tears have been watering a future that includes you, whether you realized it or not. And the moment you truly understand why they are waiting, everything you thought you knew about love, timing, and destiny will shift. This is not coincidence. This is not fantasy. This is the quiet moment before a revelation that changes direction. And if your heart is beating faster right now, it is because some truths recognize you before you recognize them. There is a silence following you that is not empty, and you need to understand why it exists. This silence was created by moments left unsaid, by feelings paused mid-breath, by a story that refused to end when it was supposed to. Somewhere, someone learned how to smile in front of others while breaking privately, because they believed your path mattered more than their confession. They chose restraint over relief. They chose patience over pressure. And every night, when the world finally stopped demanding strength from them, their eyes filled with tears that never reached the surface. Those tears were not dramatic. They were disciplined. They were controlled. They were the price of loving quietly while waiting for you to become ready to hear the truth that was always circling your life. You may wonder why this weight has suddenly entered your awareness now. It is because the waiting has reached a turning point. The person who is holding back tears has reached the edge of their patience, not in anger, but in exhaustion. They are tired of guessing whether your silence means distance or fear. They are tired of asking the universe for signs while pretending they do not care. Their heart has been standing in the same place for a long time, hoping your direction would finally align with theirs. This is why your thoughts have been drifting toward reflection. This is why memories are resurfacing without invitation. It is not nostalgia. It is preparation. Life is positioning you to notice what you once overlooked, because some connections do not disappear. They wait. And waiting changes the meaning of everything. Here is what has been hidden from you. The tears you cannot see have been shaping your future in subtle ways. Every time a door closed unexpectedly, every time something did not work out despite your effort, it was not punishment. It was redirection. The universe has been protecting a meeting that must happen with clarity, not confusion. The person waiting does not want a version of you that is rushed or uncertain. They want the version of you that has learned through loss, patience, and self-respect. That is why they stayed silent. That is why they chose distance over disruption. They believed that if it was real, it would survive time. And it did. It survived in tears, in prayers, in moments of doubt where they still chose hope over surrender. Right now, something inside you is shifting. You may feel a strange calm mixed with urgency. That is not contradiction. That is recognition. Recognition that someone has been emotionally present for you even when physically absent. Recognition that not all love announces itself loudly. Some love waits until the listener is strong enough to hear it without running. The person with tears in their eyes does not want to trap you. They want to meet you at eye level, where honesty does not hurt and truth does not scare. But this moment requires courage from you. Not the courage to act immediately, but the courage to admit that your life has been influenced by someone who never demanded credit for it. Stay grounded in this moment, because the next phase is delicate. Awareness changes responsibility. Once you see clearly, you cannot unsee. The waiting will not last forever, and the tears are not endless. They are signals that time is asking a question. Will you notice? Will you understand? Will you allow yourself to acknowledge a connection that did not fade, even when everything else changed? This is not about regret. This is about alignment. And if your heart feels unusually quiet right now, it is because something deep within you knows that the truth you are approaching is not meant to hurt you. It is meant to guide you toward a moment that has been patiently waiting for your arrival. There comes a moment when truth no longer whispers and no longer waits for permission. You are closer to that moment than you realize. The person whose eyes have been heavy with tears has reached a quiet inner decision, not to chase, not to beg, but to prepare themselves for whatever outcome follows your awakening. This is important, because their waiting was never weakness. It was strength under control. They have learned how to hold love without letting it spill into desperation. And now, that controlled strength is shifting into acceptance, which is far more powerful than longing. When acceptance begins, everything changes. The energy between you is no longer suspended. It starts to move. This is why your life may soon feel faster, sharper, and strangely focused, as if events are aligning without effort. You must understand something that may surprise you. While you believed you were moving forward alone, someone else was growing in parallel with you. They were learning lessons you never saw. They were letting go of expectations that once consumed them. They were teaching themselves how to love without attachment, how to care without control. Those tears you never witnessed became their teachers. Each tear refined their understanding of patience, dignity, and timing. And now, if and when paths cross again, you will not meet the same person you once knew. You will meet someone steadier, clearer, and emotionally grounded. This is why this connection feels heavier now. It is not about the past. It is about the version of the future that is finally possible. What has been shaping this entire story is not chance, but readiness. Readiness is not loud. It does not announce itself. It reveals itself through stillness, through sudden clarity, through the strange sense that you can no longer ignore what once felt distant. The person who waited did not do so blindly. They watched you evolve. They saw your struggles, even from afar. They trusted that life would teach you what they could not say without damaging your growth. That trust came at a cost. Tears were the currency. Silence was the sacrifice. But the reward was knowing that if you ever turned back toward them, it would be with open eyes, not confusion. This is why the timing feels intense now. You are finally able to understand what this connection asks of you, without fear. There is also a truth you may not expect. Waiting does not mean endless availability. The person with tears has limits, even if they never showed them. They have reached a place where they are ready to move forward, with or without closure. This does not mean they have stopped caring. It means they respect themselves enough to stop dissolving into uncertainty. That shift is powerful. It creates a narrowing window, not as pressure, but as reality. Life does not pause forever. And when someone who loves deeply learns how to stand without leaning, their presence becomes undeniable. If you feel a subtle urgency now, it is because something real is stabilizing on the other side of silence. Pay attention to what stirs within you after hearing this. Not panic. Not guilt. Awareness. Awareness is the bridge between distance and connection. You are not being asked to perform or promise. You are being asked to recognize the weight of what has existed quietly beside your life. Someone's tears were never meant to trap you. They were meant to protect something fragile until you were ready to approach it without breaking it. The next shift will not come through force. It will come through clarity. And once clarity arrives, the waiting, the tears, and the silence will finally make sense as parts of a story that was never unfinished, only patiently unfolding. There is a quiet shift that happens before destiny reveals itself, and you are standing inside that shift right now. Nothing dramatic announces it. No loud sign appears. Instead, your awareness deepens, and ordinary moments start to feel meaningful. The person whose eyes carried tears sensed this change before you did. They felt it in their breath, in the way hope stopped hurting and started feeling steady. They understood that waiting was no longer about longing, but about readiness. Readiness to meet you without expectations, without fear, and without the need to explain why they stayed when silence made everything harder. This is the calm before truth steps forward, and it is far more powerful than chaos. What you may not realize is how deeply your presence shaped their inner world. Even in absence, your energy influenced their decisions, their boundaries, and their healing. They asked themselves difficult questions. They confronted old patterns. They learned not to abandon themselves while loving someone else. Tears became a form of release, not weakness. Each tear cleared space inside them for strength, clarity, and self-respect. That is why this connection feels different now. It is no longer fragile. It is grounded. If paths cross again, it will not be out of emotional need, but mutual recognition. And that changes everything. There is also something happening within you that deserves attention. You are becoming more aware of emotional truth. You are less distracted by noise. You are more sensitive to what feels real. This is not coincidence. Growth always precedes reunion or release. The universe does not bring people together when one is still running from themselves. It waits. It tests. It stretches time until both sides can stand in front of each other without masks. The tears you never saw were part of that test. They proved endurance. They proved sincerity. And now, the results of that endurance are moving toward visibility. Understand this clearly. The person waiting does not need you to rescue them. They are no longer standing in vulnerability. They are standing in choice. Choice to remain open. Choice to walk forward if necessary. Choice to speak if the moment arrives, or to let go with dignity if it does not. That level of emotional maturity is rare. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be forced. It can only be reached through patience that hurts and hope that refuses to disappear. If you sense respect rising within you as you listen, that is your intuition recognizing something real and earned. Stay present with this truth, because the next step will come quietly. It will not shout. It will feel natural, almost familiar, as if something clicks into place without effort. The tears, the waiting, the silence, and the distance were never meant to create pain. They were meant to prepare two people to meet truth without fear. And when that moment arrives, whether through a conversation, a glance, or a realization within yourself, you will understand why everything unfolded exactly as it did. This is not the end of waiting. This is the moment waiting begins to transform into clarity. There is a realization approaching you that will not ask for permission before it settles in your heart. It will arrive softly, almost gently, but once it does, it will change the way you interpret everything that came before it. The person whose eyes once carried silent tears has stopped asking why things unfolded this way. They now understand that some connections are not meant to rush toward answers. They are meant to mature in silence. This realization has freed them from impatience and freed you from confusion. What once felt distant now feels inevitable. Not because of force, but because truth has a way of finding its moment when resistance finally fades. You should know this clearly. The waiting was never meant to create pain for you. It was meant to protect something meaningful from being touched too early. If this connection had revealed itself before now, it would have collapsed under misunderstanding. Timing has been your greatest ally, even when it felt like delay. The person waiting accepted this long before you did. They trusted that when your awareness caught up, it would be strong enough to hold what they felt. That trust required discipline. It required emotional restraint. It required tears that were shed in private so that respect could remain intact in public. That is why this bond feels unusually pure now. Something else is happening beneath the surface. Your perspective is shifting from seeking answers to recognizing patterns. You are beginning to see how often this person appeared at turning points in your life, even indirectly. Their influence was subtle, but consistent. When you needed grounding, they were steady. When you needed space, they stepped back. This balance was intentional. It was an act of care that did not demand acknowledgement. And now that your awareness has expanded, you can finally see the quiet intelligence behind their silence. This is not coincidence. This is alignment revealing itself in stages. Here is the truth that carries weight. Waiting changes people. It sharpens self-awareness. It removes illusion. The person who waited is no longer defined by hope alone. They are defined by choice. Choice to stand in truth. Choice to honor themselves. Choice to remain open without self-betrayal. This is why the energy between you feels different now. It is not fragile. It is clear. And clarity has gravity. It pulls things into place without struggle. If you feel drawn inward rather than outward as you listen, it is because something within you is recognizing that this story is asking for presence, not escape. Let this settle without urgency. Not everything meaningful requires immediate movement. Some truths need space to be absorbed before they guide action. The tears that once waited for you have already done their work. They softened resistance. They refined intention. They prepared the ground. What happens next will not be dramatic. It will be honest. And honesty, when it arrives at the right time, changes everything without raising its voice. This is not a moment to fear. This is a moment to understand that waiting was never wasted. It was shaping the exact clarity you are beginning to feel now. There is a moment when the heart understands before the mind can explain, and you are approaching that moment now. It arrives quietly, without urgency, but it carries undeniable certainty. The person whose eyes once held back tears has reached a place of inner balance where they no longer need reassurance to remain steady. Their waiting transformed into wisdom. Their silence turned into self-respect. This shift matters more than you realize, because it means that whatever unfolds next will be grounded, not emotional. You are not being pulled into something fragile. You are being invited toward something stable, something that can stand without fear of breaking. You may feel an unusual sense of calm mixed with reflection. That is not coincidence. When clarity approaches, noise fades. The questions that once chased you begin to slow down. You start noticing how little effort it takes to stay aligned with truth. The person waiting sensed this alignment long ago. They trusted that when you reached this state, recognition would happen naturally. No persuasion. No pressure. Just understanding. That trust required strength. It required faith in your growth, even when distance made everything uncertain. Their tears were not signs of doubt. They were signs of commitment to timing over impulse. There is something important you must recognize now. Love that waits does not weaken. It deepens. It becomes selective. It learns when to speak and when to remain still. The person connected to you learned this lesson through patience that demanded courage. They did not chase you because they respected your path. They did not interrupt your journey because they understood that interference would cost you lessons you needed to learn alone. That kind of restraint is rare.